right, so just before we get started, let's talk about a little bit of housekeeping. So Monday of next week, you guys don't come here. Otherwise, you'll be all by yourself. It's a holiday, so you might as well enjoy it. You know, it's permission to get blind drunk on Sundays. That's what next week is. So that probably. So there's no reason to show up on Monday because I won't be. I will be barely conscious on Monday. Yeah, so don't show up on Monday. That being said, we're almost wrapped up. We're almost done. I have a notification piece to teach you so that we can implement the notification system. There's a lab 4. If we get to it, we get to it. If not, like I was telling these guys, I'll exempt you from it. So you'll get the 2.5 marks anyways. But you won't have to actually do the work. If we don't get to it. If we get to it, then you'll have to do the work. That being said, super easy, not a lot of work. It's really just taking the notification system and adding it into the logical places. That's all it is. I will be releasing a video for next week to actually take your stuff and put it to Heroku. I was going to do that yesterday, but I didn't get a chance. I had a bad neck and stuff, and I couldn't stand in front of the computer for that long. So I'll do that. So at least you know how to deploy your React and Node side. Other than that, next week I'll be releasing the quiz. I would recommend taking that quiz, and you know, all you lovely people who came today, that quiz will contain 25 questions that I guarantee you will be the exact same 25 questions that will be on the theory that will be presented to you the following Monday. So if you take the quiz and just do the quiz, which will be wide open, take it as many times as you want, you will ace that theory part. And then seeing how it's half the grade, it's definitely worthwhile, right? So yeah, that's a little tip to you. What else? The practical side of that quiz, or the practical side of the final, will be basically just creating the React resource piece that we've been doing with blogs. Same thing, so you'll probably have 4 files altogether. You'll add your routes in. It'll be stupid simple. Mostly you'll probably get it done in an hour. But that being said, that'll be what we'll likely be doing. So study over the blog stuff that we did, where we created the Axios pieces to connect to the Node backside. And I will be providing the Node endpoint for you, so I'll give you the Node section, and all you'll have to do is write the front part for it. That's it. And everyone's will be different based on your group, so they'll be oriented towards your group. The only difference between that and the midterm is you won't be able to communicate with other class members, only the people in your group, unless at the beginning of the whole thing you come to me with a group of 3 people that you want to pair up with at that day. That's totally fine. So if you haven't been in a group with other people, that's fine, as long as I know the 3 people you're going to be pairing up with. I just don't want the same thing happening, which happened to my Thursday group, where I wound up with a group of 10 people. No. 5 of them I had never seen before in my life. So let's not have that happen, right? Yeah, so that's basically it. So today we are going to finish off the rest of our CRUD stuff. So we need to show a resource, we need our index for our blogs, need to be able to log out, right? Need to be able to destroy a blog and update a blog, so we're going to do that, and then if we have time, we'll add the notification system in, which I think we might be able to do. And then if we're done and there's time left over, then you guys can work on either your projects or whatever, and I'll give you project support, or if we're done and you just want to go home, we can do that too. All right, it's supposed to rain at 7, thunderstorms at 7, so try to get out of here before 7 if we can, so that you guys aren't driving in that nasty weather. All right, cool. So we finished last week. If you go ahead and open up your terminals so that you have your terminals open into our projects, PWD, so you can see where I am in mine. These are the directories that I'm currently in mine. Go ahead and navigate to yours. I did push all the stuff we did last week up to GitHub, so it's all sitting live on GitHub. So if you need those files for any reason, just go take a look at them there. Here, dinging. That sucks. All right. Scraper's still not working. That sucks. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and open those up. Once you're done, go ahead and open up your IDE. Make sure you are in our piece, our project. And the last place that we were at, we were working on the sessions controller. We were having an issue with our data being sent to the front because we were missing our send. Was it you, Ben, that found that? Or was it you, Adrian? Maybe. It was somebody over here that found it. Okay, yeah. Which is awesome. So now it's working because it's sending it off. We have all that piece in. Yippee skippy. One thing I do notice in the sessions controller here on line 29, this res doesn't have a status. We definitely need a status in there so that it will actually show something. So we'll put a 404 in there, a status of 404. And then at least we'll get an error back just right here on line 29 in this catch. Now we were able to log in by the end of class, which is great. So obviously we need to be able to log out as well. So we'll write our logout. Our logout's going to be two pieces, just like login was. The logout front end piece, where you actually click the button in React and then it logs you out. And then the back end piece in the sessions controller. So we might as well write the back end piece because we're already here in the sessions controller. So we'll just finish it up. So you know what? Let's just highlight all the logic that's in logout and just delete it because it's basically brand new. The first thing we're going to need to implement is our new authenticated check, where if they're not authenticated, we'll wind up sending a status of 401 and give them an error, right? Perfectly simple. We're probably used to this, or maybe you've forgotten by this point, which is totally fine. Request.isAuthenticated is our method. All right, so if we're not authenticated, that's hence the exclamation mark in front of it. That's the not operator. Then res.status. Let's do a 401. And we'll send back an error. Error could not authenticate request. So when we authenticate our user, we set a session cookie on the back end for them, and we also set a JWT, which is a JSON web token. That's a cookie that we set on the front. That allows us to be able to authenticate each request that they make and check whether or not they're actually authenticated to be able to make that request, right? So when they log out, we need to reset those. We need to clear their JWT so it's gone, and we also need to clear their session. The way we were clearing the session before will still work now. We'll just do request.session.user ID with a capital I equals null. So that will clear the session. Now they don't have a session ID or a user ID in the, stored in there. And then to clear the cookie, not too difficult. It's simply res.clear cookie, which is a method that's in JavaScript, and we're going to call that on the key token because that's how we stored it. We're going to give a status of 200, and then we're going to send a response saying success, you are now logged out. And I save and everything goes buh, 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 buh. Which is kind of annoying, but so once again, the reason why we're checking to see if they're authenticated is because there's no reason for them to log out if they're not, right? If they're authenticated, we're going to set our status to 401. Sorry, if they're not authenticated, we'll set the status to 401 and send back saying we could not authenticate the request, okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our request session user ID and set it off to null. The reason why we're doing that is because we actually check the session ID as part of our authentication check. So we want to clear that when they log out. And then last but not least, we're going to clear our JWT, right? So our token. So it's gone. Send them a status of 200 and send them a success message. What this clear cookie will wind up doing is actually clearing the cookie on the front end. So the cookie will entirely disappear on the front end. So now we know that they're no longer authenticated and they're logged out. I'll just give everybody a second to finish writing that down. Incidentally, we could probably use the cookie on the front end to check whether or not they're logged in or not logged in and show information based on them being logged in. Like, for example, menu options. Because if they're not logged in, they don't need to see certain menu options, right? All right. Everybody still writing that out? No? Oh, yep, okay. Give me a second here. For the rest of you, if you want to go ahead and open up the client source components sessions logout.js. We'll work in there next. Logout.js under the client. So the React side. Should be under your components sessions folder. Good? All right, cool. Let's open up Logout. Control P, Logout. I think you only have one log. Oh, were you still writing, Barry or Charlie?
No, I was just looking up to see exactly where it was.
Yeah, it's in components. Yeah. All right, component, 3 pieces. This is definitely going to be a question on the quiz. What is the first piece we need to create a component? React. That's correct. Import React from React. Nice. Second piece? React DOM?
Yeah.
No. What's that? No. No, just a simple component. Just 3 pieces to a simple component. Yep, the function. There we go. And then export. That's correct. Yeah. I'm making that distinction on purpose because the question will be what 3 components make up a simple component. Or what 3 pieces make up a simple component. There we go. Cool. Now we're ready to turn this into more of an Axios connect to the API kind of thing, right? So I want to add state. So what do I need to add state? Sorry, no. We're going to do something different. My apologies. I don't want to add state. We're going to talk about this. So with class-based components, we have this thing called a component lifecycle. And what the lifecycle is it's basically points within a component's operation, right, that you can actually tap into and then perform some logic at that particular point. So if you think about how a component will run, a component gets instantiated, right? You can actually tap into that point where it gets instantiated. It's called mounting, right? A component will update. It actually updates like a game cycle almost. Every tick it updates. You can actually tap into that update and perform logic right at that particular point where it's actually going through its update cycle. You can also perform logic when it unmounts. So when they leave the page, right? You can perform another piece of logic there. There's about 5 or 6 different lifecycle hooks that you can actually tap into. It's a little clearer in classes than it is in hooks, functions with hooks. The classes actually have the methods name that. So they have component did mount, component will mount, component did unmount, component will unmount, and component will update or did update. So they have all these different little lifecycle class methods that you can actually add to your class. Makes it super clear and easy for you to see. However, the hook system doesn't quite work that way. The hook system is a little different, so it can be a little confusing at first, but it still works relatively the same way. So let's talk about how that actually works. The first piece we need in order to access at a certain point within our component's lifecycle is a method called UseEffect. So you remember useState? Now we have another hook method that we're going to utilize called UseEffect. So to add it, we add it the same way we did useState. We just add it in here. There are other hook methods like useContext. What else is there? There's a whole bunch of them actually. Let me see here. There's use. Stop that. Stop hijacking my thing. Use callback, use context, use memo, reducer, state, and effect. The only ones we're really going to work with is use effect, use state, and then when we learn the notifier, we'll be using use context. Use context allows us to avoid this directional, unidirectional communication that React forces. It allows us to be able to actually use like a global state object to communicate data back and forth. Totally fine to be confused right now. We're going to talk about it later. If we get to it. We will get to it, hopefully. Okay, so in here we're going to need some of our other pieces. Definitely going to need the redirect because I want to redirect once we're done our actual deletion. Sorry, our logout, if I can spell redirect. And that comes from the React Writer DOM. Hello, Domi. And I want to communicate with the API, so I'm going to also import Axios. Axios. By the way, if you want to see a really good show on TV, if you have Amazon Prime, watch The Boys. It's a good show. Very, very solid. If you're into comic books and superheroes and things like that. It is, yeah, kind of. It's like the superheroes are kind of the bad guys in it, though. It's really interesting. It's a good show. All right, so function logout, right? So now we need to just add some stuff in here, and this is probably going to be one of the smallest components we are ever going to write. It's, you know what? Let's write the return first. Return. Our return is going to be the redirect. No matter what, even if the logout fails, we are always going to redirect from this component. In fact, we're going to wind up doing it asynchronously because this is going to execute in line with the UseEffect execution. So no matter what, it will redirect, and the UseEffect will just continue in the background. Let's add in our UseEffect piece. So to UseEffect, it's UseEffect, like so. UseEffect takes one argument for sure, two arguments if you want to use it in a different way. If you give it only one argument, it will execute on every lifecycle tick, which means every single time the component updates, it will update, and it will execute whatever code is in the callback. If you add a set of square brackets or an array of information, it will execute only when the thing in the array changes. So if you have a props value, when the props value changes, it will execute. If you have a state value in there, it will execute. If you give it an empty array, it will only execute once, just when it mounts. So when the thing gets instantiated and it is mounted, it will execute. So it's kind of annoying to remember that, but thank God for documentation. It helps us out a lot. The key point is empty array does it when it will mount. Array containing items will do it when those items update. No array will do it every tick. Every single tick it will update. All right, so there's different reasons why you would use those. The one that we're going to concern ourselves with today is just the update method. Or sorry, the mounting method. So we're going to do a post with Axios in our callback here. And our post is very simple. We're just posting to API logout. We don't even need to send it data. We just need to trigger it. And then the second argument is just an empty array. And why don't we add a comment above that just so we know what's happening here. There. Be a little bit more helpful. If you don't want to litter yours with comments, that's fine. I am going to push this code. So the way we're going to test this is we're actually going to look at our cookies as we log in. We should see the cookie get created, and then when we click log out, we should see the cookie disappear. Okay? Okay, and then we know for sure it's working. I'll give you a couple more seconds to finish typing that out. All good? Anybody not good? No? All right. Let's open up our terminals. Nodemon on the server. Yarn start or npm start in the client. Browser should open. Everything should be hunky-dory. Go ahead and open up your sidebar, like your console, and navigate to the application tab, which for some reason is super zoomed in. There we go. And just make sure you've clicked on cookies under cookies. Right now you should have no cookies. You should just have your GA or sometimes your extensions will create a cookie for you. So that's the only reason you should have a cookie in there. All right, navigate to login. Oh, sorry, we have to go to /login. /login, there we go. Still no cookie. Hopefully you remember what you created last week. I think mine was ASDF, ASDF. And if I click submit, I should see a cookie get created here, and everything should be hunky-dory. Sure enough, there's my token. You can see my token was created. Now the thing is if I navigate to logout, it's not going to work. And why is it not going to work? We're missing something. Yeah, we're missing the route. So let's jump back over here, open up our routes.js under the client. And we will import logout from /sessions logout. And then we will add our route in. And it will just go to logout. And that's a self-closing tag. Just those two lines. All right. We're good? Yes? Cool. Let's go to our browser. Now if we type in /logout, you should see the token disappear. Nope, it didn't disappear, and we got navigated back. So let's go check console and see what happened. Yeah, we got a 401 unauthorized. And we have an uncaught promise. The reason why this happened is because when we add new information into the React, it will actually refresh React entirely, which means any tokens and stuff that we were dealing with before are now out of date. They're incorrect. So to fix this, we just go back to login, so /login. Log back in again, ASDF, ASDF. Go to our application, there's our new token. And now I should be able to go to /logout, and you can see the token has disappeared. So we can log in, and we can log out. Yes. So obviously we're going to need links, because we currently have no links, which is really goofy. So why don't we add some links to our application so that we can actually navigate around a little bit. So if we go to, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Incidentally, Command M does that, which is kind of neat. All right, let's navigate over to, no, Command P, main nav. And we'll add them into here in our main nav. These if is authenticated, just get rid of those. I don't even know why they're in there. If you don't have them, then you will need this code. Hold on, let me make this guy out one. All right. Why don't I do something super nice and see? Oh yeah, actually all of our code's in here. Some of this is super wrong though. Oh, this is the pug file. Sorry, I couldn't figure out what the heck was happening here. Do less drugs. There we go. This is the one we want. That makes sense now. There we are. All right, let's add in the register, login, and log out. So we'll just copy one of these, paste it, and then modify it. So I'm going to do login. I'll just call this login. Log out. The main underscore nav, which is under components, partials, main nav.js. You should have it. Yep, I'm just about to add it. And then this one, last one would be register. I mean, you can do it in any order that you feel makes sense. All right, I'll come take a look here in a second. Okay. All right, so these three. What's getting at it? Did you find it? Oh, mine's, yeah, so Prettier. I use this thing called Prettier. It's just an extension, and it does this to my code, which is kind of annoying, kind of okay. I don't know. But these are the three you're going to add. Yep, they're going to be LIs. We should probably add blogs too, actually. No, I don't want to do that. That's not what I meant to do. Where did we do this? Right. Yeah. All right. We have a much worse one to write. We have a much worse one to write. Just because it's bootstrap and it's kind of annoying. All right. Underneath contact. Yes. Every time you log in, you'll get a new token. That's correct. Yeah, it shouldn't be the same token ever. Oh, no, it should be the same token, always. It should be because, I'm trying to remember what actually instantiates the token. So it might be different because it might be based on a timestamp as well. But basically, it's your email address. You know that place where we wrote the payload in your email? So the payload is your email address. It takes your email address. It takes the salt key that you wrote, like Bob the Builder or whatever you wrote. Takes those two pieces and turns it into a base64 token. But I think another piece that comes into that is the timestamp. So whatever the expiry date timestamp is also gets added into that. So I think if you log in the span of an hour, your token will always be the same. But after that hour's point, then it will be different, depending on how they encrypt it. I can't remember how they encrypt it. Yeah.
The moment we log in, log out, it should disappear.
It'll disappear. The token should disappear entirely. Yeah. All right, so we're going to write another list item here. So we're going to have li class name equals nav item, but we're also going to add in drop down. So we're going to create our blog piece here. The way Bootstrap builds this out, it has a link that it uses in order to trigger the drop-down to come down and go back up again. So we have to build an A tag for it. So we do A class name equals nav link. So it shows up like every other nav link, but it also has drop-down toggle as one of its classes. And then we have to give it a href, which can just be literally, in React, you can't use the hashtag. React gets totally mad if you don't have an actual URL. It like freaks out, which is kind of annoying, but that's the way it works. The data toggle will be equal to a dropdown. The role is equal to button, and is optional technically, but is good for accessibility. Area has pop-up equals true. And then area expanded, here, hold on. There, it might be a little bit easier to see now. Area expanded is equal to false. Bam. Oh my god. I mean, that's a little easier to see, but not really. I don't know if that's helpful. And then in between the A tags, just write blogs. Blurgs. Oh, that's god awful. Why would you do that? Stupid prettier. I don't like that. All right, once you're done writing that, underneath that A tag, you're going to write a div with the class name equal to drop-down menu. And inside there, we're going to create our two links that will actually point to our blogs list and a new blog, like for creating a new blog. So it'll be a class name equals drop-down item. And these are all Bootstrap things. And no, I don't remember these off the top of my head. Plugs. And then a class name. I mean, I could have just duplicated it because it's basically the same. Drop down item. Ref equals. Oh, I just discovered why it was doing that. I couldn't figure out why it kept creating new requests, and now I know why. Change href. No, change a in these things to link. I done goofed. Those need to be link. No, that one needs to be an A tag. Just these two, because that one is only responsible for actually opening the dropdown and closing the dropdown. And then href is not href, it is 2. And then it just split it all up on me. There you go. So this big block right here. So you'll remember last week or the week before when we actually switched out from Hook Router over to React Router, I explained that link does a soft request, right? So it will soft request to whatever URL it is that you're going to. So it doesn't actually make a full HTTP request that goes to your server and comes back with a response. It doesn't do any of that. It literally makes a soft request where it will just take whatever component needs to be rendered and render it for you. However, what I have discovered is redirect actually does a hard request. I thought redirect were doing soft requests, but it's not. So anytime we call redirect, that is a hard request that will then navigate to that path. That I don't think is a bad thing. That I think is a good thing. I think that's what we want. We want it to do a hard redirect so that the request body is replaced, right? So, all right. Everybody good? Yeah, we made it through? Made it to the end? Well, we'll find out. If you go over, you should now see your home bar going home, about, contact, blogs, login, logout, and register. And if you click on blogs, it should pop up or pop out. Pop up or pop out. Thanks, Satosh, for your moral support. YouTube that. So again, we have to log in. So if we click log in, ASDF, ASDF, because every time we log, see, you'll notice the cookie even disappears, right? See how the cookie is gone? The second we save, everything just goes back to the way it was. Now we got our cookie back, and now we're at /blurgs, right? Incidentally, we should be able to create a new blurg. If you go to new, we should be able to create a new blurg.
How do you fix that promise?
The what?
The uncomp promise that we have when you want me up.
What uncomp promise?
Or when we get rid of the token.
Oh, the reason we were getting that when you click logout is because we had saved. When we saved, it actually cleared the original token that was there because React refreshes itself. That's the only kind of frustrating part. React won't stay maintained in its session. When you save, it creates a brand new session. One other thing that you guys probably didn't know about, this address on your network is accessible by everybody. So everybody can actually go to that address and go see your site. So if you're working with your groups and you want to see the changes you made, but you don't want to necessarily push your changes, as long as you are on the same network, you can simply provide this address to them, and then they can see your changes. And yes, that does work on Georgian's system, as long as you're on the same node. So hopefully you don't wind up bounced to a different node, but it should work. Anyways, thought it was kind of... No. Hasn't even been 40 minutes, Ali. Okay, can we do one thing? Just one? See how we can't see the title because it's hidden under the bar? Can we fix that?
I can see the title.
I can't see the title. Do you think you're better than me? All right, I'm going to open up index. I worked with this guy, and he went on a blind date. He's married to this woman now, though. And they were sitting there at like the dinner table, right? And he's like, she asked him what he does for a living, and he does low voltage installations. He's like, well, I'm a low voltage installer, so a contractor, right? And he's like, what do you do for a living? And she's like, oh, well, I'm a teacher. I teach at Notre Dame in Aurelia. And he's like, oh, so you think you're better than me? Like, that is awesome. Totally took her off guard. But they're married now, so it's good. Where am I fixing this? No, it's not under index.js. No, we need to open up index. We have to do two spots. Index.html, we have an error there. You see this styles that's here? Styles.css. And notice that in your browser you have an error. Refuse to apply styles from blah, blah, blah. Look at the address that it's giving you. Do you know why it's giving this really bizarre address? Okay, so this is one thing I find that nobody gets to learn when they're learning about web. This is called a relative URL. Relative URL basically says take the current directory you are in, like your current path, and then add slash and add that thing to the end of it. So unless you explicitly tell it where it starts and what its path is, it will keep doing that. We can still use relative URLs, but we can actually say start at the root of our directory and go from there. The other way to write this is with a dot slash. If you wrote it with a dot slash and save it, you should get the same error still, okay? Because that's now explicitly saying this is a relative URL, right? That dot says start where you are currently located, which is blogs new, and then add in styles from that point on. The way we correct it, we remove the dot. That now says start at the root of my application and go from there. And if you notice, goodbye. And we can also see new blog post because now our CSS styles are actually working. Cool. Relative paths. Does anybody know what an absolute path is? And what an absolute path looks like? Starts where? It does, but absolute path will contain HTTP, right? So it should contain your entire actual URL. Yeah. Yeah, whatever protocol you happen to be using. So generally with absolute URLs, you will build them. So you have to build them dynamically, but that way they get automatically put out. WordPress by default uses absolute URLs. If you want to use relatives, you have to tell it to in WordPress. I know that was one weird characteristic of WordPress. Cool. Let's take a break because Ellie needs a break. And yeah, she's a mom who could really use a break. There we go. Let's pause. I'll resume. Picking up where we left off. I'll be posting Thursday anyway, so it's not like a big deal. But hence, what Adrian said, though, it is important to come to class because sometimes there are technical difficulties. All right, cool. So we have our show. Has everybody got show done? Anybody still typing out show? No? Okay, let's see if this actually works. He says hopefully. Show is a public-facing API, so we don't need to actually log in. You should just be able to click on this, and if it's working, you should see it, right? Navigate back. Cool. Wow. That is intense. Quantum mechanics, also known as quantum physics. It's way more writing than I write. XYZ. Block current version. Yeah. This is my content. Hello, Tash. We'll use this one to edit, actually. But we'll do that afterwards. So why don't we take a 10-minute break, a shorter break this time, regroup at 7 o'clock, and we'll go from there. All right. You guys have an animation class?
We have to make Swift projects, and
Right.
as far as Swift projects, we're doing 2048.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Doing some animations in it.
That's cool.
So,
That's pretty awesome.
24/8
is a pretty solid game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you actually make the buildings so you can, like... Isn't 24/8... Oh, no, that's the number game. 24/8 is the number game.
Yeah.
There's a building version of that game that's like... You have to keep combining the buildings and they keep getting taller, and it's pretty cool, but it's difficult. Yeah. Those type of games are really neat. They're a neat concept. All right, so we have show, where we can click and go see this, right? I mean, a back button probably wouldn't be a bad idea. But no, I'm not going to. I'm super lazy. So we're going to create edit a resource, right? So that we can actually edit one of these. So we're going to add the actions in here for edit and delete, and then we'll have those available to us. So the first step for us is to open up our little sidebar here. Under blogs, we're going to right-click, choose new file, and call it edit.js. And the one thing you'll notice right off the bat with React, our database logic, like for us to actually like create a new record and show that record and all that type of stuff is happening in these files. We're not separating them out. There's not an edit and an update, right? There is technically, though. There is technically still an update, but it's being handled by what? What actually performs the database logic? Is it React performing the database logic? No. What's actually performing it? No. Mongo. And who's controlling Mongo? The node side, right? Yeah, the node side is controlling Mongo. All React is doing is facilitating our requests. That's it. It's like, cool, you want to do this thing? No worries. Hey, big guy, go do this, right? And it sends it off to Node. And Node takes care of it and sends back either a success or an error. React doesn't care either way, right? It's just facilitating the process. So that's one thing to understand why we're doing our database stuff in the same component is because we contain in that component, we contain everything that is like-minded, right, for that component, so that it literally runs as a sole entity, okay? Actually, some people would even put all these blog pieces together as one component. So you would have index, edit, delete, and show all within one component, and it would just flip back and forth between the different things. Okay, but we're using React routers so we can keep them nice and split up. Let's import React, right? And while we're at it, we're also going to need to use effect, and we're also going to need to use state. We're going to use effect because we actually, when we edit, we need to retrieve the record, right? And then we'll populate it into our form. And in order to do that, we use effect, right? So that when the component mounts, we'll grab that record's data and put it in. So this is going to be like a hybrid of show. No, yeah, it'll be a hybrid of show and create. It's like a combination of those two kind of functions, right? Import redirect. From the React router DOM. And then import Captain Axios from Axios. Sounds like a superhero name. We can add in the other pieces too, the function edit with props. So we can pass back that piece. And then we'll export the default edit. Okay, before we go too much further, I want to add the route so that we have the route in place and it's done. Okay, so if you jump over to routes.js, we're going to go up here to where it says blog show, and I'm just going to duplicate that, call it blog edit, and that's going to point to the edit. And then down here where it says blogs ID, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to leave it as blogs::ID. I'm just going to add /edit and change this to blog edit. So those two lines. So we're also going to need the link under index. So why don't we add that? If we go, sorry, main nav. If we go to the main nav, no, index. I was right the first time. Index. My apologies. Come down here where we have this self-closing TD, and let's turn it into a non-self-closing TD. And we're going to write this. Oop. We need to write a link, and it's going to point to a 2 equals, with some dirty backticks, /blogs /$ blog._ID /edit. And we're going to call this edit. And we'll add a pipe character to it. And then we'll do, actually, we won't add the pipe character yet. We'll just leave the edit in there for now. Just that by itself. Cool? Anybody not cool? Nice. Alrighty, now we're ready to finish off this thing. So let's jump back over to edit.js, put our cursor in these curly braces, and split those guys apart. So just like we did in new, for both register, actually we did it in 3 files. We did it in register, login, and in create. We're going to create an inputs state object. So we're going to do const inputs, set inputs. That is going to be equal to useState, which is going to take in a initializer object. And then we're also going to define the redirect one as well. You could also just copy these if you wanted to. Set redirect, and that's going to be equal to useState, and by default will be set to false. Just like the create, you're going to need a function handle submit and a function handle input change, I think it's called. Can't never remember. Yeah, input change. With not a capital H. Input change. Oh, with an uppercase C though. There we go. Also going to need that wonderful if redirect. And we'll just get it to point to blogs so we can see the updated change. And then last but not least, we'll return. Just to avoid the whole hassle of going through and typing it all out just based on time, if you navigate to the lesson plan of last week's lesson plan, I think it's last week's. Yes, CRUD Part 2, React CRUD Part 2, and scroll to where the file begins. It's after the first break, called Editing a Resource. You will see a very large form there. Go ahead and copy the form in the return, so between the two return brackets. So lesson plan, down here where it says editing a resource, and it will be this div to the closing div. So copy that. Once you have it copied, jump over to your IDE and just paste that in place and save it. There's one change here compared to the create, and that's this piece right here. Default value. What that tells React is it says this is the default value I want you to put in this field. And it's currently set to inputs.title. So inputs is our state, title is the property that's currently saved in that. It's different depending on what you're doing. If you have an input, like we have here, it's default value. If you have a text area, it's value. And if you have a select box, it's default value, but it's on the select tag. So a little confusing, but I wish it was more consistent. I wish they were always just default value. That would make more sense to me, but it's not. If you put default value under text area, you will see nothing. So you have to use value, unfortunately. All right. The good news is that this encompasses all three different types that you're going to encounter, so you have an example of how all three are done. So that is the good news. Cool. Let's collapse the return so that we can just see the rest of the object. All right. Let's do the handle submit and the handle input change first. So let's do input change first because it's basically the same. And the handle input change has the event.persist, which stops us from having characters that we type into our keyboard overlap each other or wind up clearing out values. It forces the event entirely to complete before it takes in the next change. Then we're going to do a constant. We're going to use some destructuring here. Name value is equal to event.target. And what that will do is event.target has two properties on it. One's called name, one's called value. Those two properties will actually destructure into these two variables, name and value. If you don't like that, you can just do const name equals event.target.name and const value equals event.target.value if you want to do it that way. But I think we did it that way in the other one, so you can see the change. The next piece is to set the inputs, and actually a student on Thursday came up with a better solution for this, and I do like it. Basically what it is we simply take inputs, we call name, we make it equal to value, and then we return inputs. So instead of that crazy destructuring, or not destructuring, the spread operator thing we were doing, I find this is a little bit more readable. But now you have both ways. Under the handle submit, we have to, we need an event in here. We totally forgot to pass it. We need the event there, and we also need the event in the handle submit. Right? We need to be able to grab the target. So the first step, prevent default. Prevent default. We don't want the form submitting to whatever action it's currently set to. Next, we're going to do a post, right? We're going to post our contents. We're going to do axios.post. That's going to return a promise. And we'll write out the catch because we already know what it's going to be anyways. Console.error. There we go. That one's done. We can actually write the then as well because we're just going to redirect. So once it's successfully done, we'll just redirect to the blogs so that you can see the change. So we'll just do set redirect to true. That's it. All the main logic actually goes in the post. And the post takes two arguments. The first argument is the endpoint. The second argument is the data you want to actually write. So add in an object. Add in a string. And type in /API/blog/update, comma, and an empty object. And then put your cursor in that object. Am I going too fast? No? Am I going fast enough? Yes? What are you having for dinner? Great. All right, let's split this apart, and we'll add in our object pieces. So you'll have to remember that blog is actually under its own little block when we send it off to update. We namespace it, but we also need to send it the identifier so that it knows how to look it up. The way we're going to do that is we're going to create an ID field, and we're going to make it equal to props.match.params.id. So our bound operator, right, or our bound parameter. Then we're going to create blog, and that's going to be equal to an object. And then that object is going to have title, which will be equal to inputs.title, which is pulling from the state object. Content, which will be equal to inputs.content. And status, which will be equal to inputs.status. There we go. Our three pieces. Woohoo, us. That is the whole handle submit. The whole block. So once again, this is our API endpoint, right, that we defined inside our Node application. The ID is so that the API endpoint can look up the blog that it needs to edit and bring back its data so that it can actually edit it. And then this part here is our data encapsulated under the name blog, and it will update each one of the fields, title, content, and status. In order for this whole gigantic, because right now this thing will basically operate the same way as create, right? Because we haven't pre-filled our form. We want to pre-fill our form. In order to pre-fill the form, we are going to do a call to our Node API endpoint, say, hey, give me this record back, and now I'm going to take that record and populate my form. Not much different than what we did in the Node app, only now we're doing it with Axios and React, right? So we're going to use an effect. The effect is going to take in a callback object, right? And it's going to take in an array, which we will pass props into. So just the same that we did in show. Put your cursor in those curly braces and split those fellows apart. Then we're going to do an axios.get, right? And that's going to return a promise. Might as well fill out the catch right now because it's super simple. Console.error, error. The then is going to be a little different. So the get is going to take in our API endpoint. Wow, cannot speak. So some dirty backticks. API slash blogs slash string interpolation. Props dot match dot params dot ID. My God, that is the worst thing in the world to type. And then is going to return a result. So you can start to see the patterns, right? How edit kind of is like a amalgamation of show and create, right? It's like those two pieces together, right? And update works that way. And login and create and register, all the same thing. They're all creating something, right? So their patterns are always the same. That's what you're going to find is that a lot of these type of frameworks, they work best when you maintain that convention. You stick with those patterns because then you can just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, right? Don't copy and paste to the point where you forget how something is working, but definitely copy and paste, to make your lives a little simpler. All right, so we're returning our results. I'm going to pass that into a block. And in there, I'm going to set inputs. And we're going to make this, okay, I'm going to do this in two different ways. The first way is written out. The second way is the simpler way to do this. So set inputs with the brackets, then we do title equals result.data.input, dot title. Content, which will be result.data.content. And then status, which is result.data.status. And I am curious if anybody knows how we can make that a little smaller. Yeah, you can use destructuring, but that would actually, no, definitely don't need to do that. We can make it even much simpler. First of all, what is result.data? What data type is it? It's a what? It's an object. Yeah, it's an object. And what are we passing as an argument to set inputs? Right. And result.data has properties on it, right? Those properties are title, content, and status. See where I'm going with this? So we just give it results.data. So instead of giving it that whole object, all we have to do is give it results.data because it is identical to the object we're defining right now. So instead of all this wonderful redundancy, we simply just do result.data. And it's exactly the same thing. And then, because of explicit returning, we can actually make this even smaller. We can get rid of this closing curly brace. Bring this fella up here and get rid of this opening curly brace. And now it's on one line, and it means exactly the same thing. Now we have an edit. Hopefully the edit works. I mean, it's a lot of code. Out of curiosity, is anybody still typing her out? No? All right, let's go see if it actually works. Jump over to here, go to the blogging project, let's hit refresh. You should be able to click edit on any one of these, so I'm going to click edit on this one. And your form should populate with your values. If it does, that means it successfully connected, right, to the node application, sent it the identifier, retrieved back the data, and then set our state object with that data. That state object then updated our form with the correct values, right? So that's literally what happened. It retrieved it, set the state value, and then our form populated with the data. If you're on a slow internet connection, you would actually see these populate because it would happen, there'd be a slight delay, right? All right, so this is my content, hello attached. Let's capitalize this. Let's try that again. What the heck is happening? I can't edit either. I can edit that one. I can't edit that one. I can edit this one. Oh, that is funny. It's not funny for you, but it is funny. Okay, the reason why that's happening is because our value is getting overwritten each time, which is down here in the inputs.content. But I don't think it can be default value because when I tried that before, I had an issue. Yeah, see how content kind of clears out? So I have blog current version and I have no content, right? How do I get that to change? I had it working before. That's interesting. I'll have to investigate that. We might not be able to change that. I'll have to find a way to change it. All right, we're not going to be able to edit this though. If you click submit, you're going to get a post error, right? Why are we getting that error? Because we've been logged out, so we need to log in. Oh, that's not how you spell ASDF. ASDF, submit. Now let's try editing it. I can't do this one, but I can do the top one. Yay me. Change it to published. Hit submit. Oh ho, there it worked. Yay me. Published now. And I still have edit. I will find the fix for that and publish it. Last step. We can create a resource. We can read a resource through show and index. And we can update a resource. What do we need to be able to do now? We need to destroy. We need to terminate. All right, let's terminate. So we're going to need a new file. And this one we're going to call destroy.js. And it's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines of code in total. So why not just write it, right? Might as well. All right, import React, right? This is going to use effect, but not state this time. We're going to let the back end do most of the heavy lifting for us. Then we're going to import the redirect so that we can redirect from this point. And Axios so that we can actually do our command. We'll create a destroy function as our component, and it's going to take in props, and then we'll export that bad boy. Function body is going to use an effect, and just like we did for, was it login that we did it for? Yeah, it would have been login, where we logged in and then just redirected, and we didn't care what the initial thing was going to be. We just redirected right off the bat. We're going to kind of do the same thing. We're going to create a use effect, right? And it takes back a callback and a set of props. Well, a thing with the props in it. And then it's going to do an Axios call. And it's going to post to API/blogs/destroy. And it's going to pass it just the ID. Wow, that is not supposed to be an array. That should be an object. There we go. ID props.match.params.id. And then once it's done, it's going to get out of there. That's it. That's all 15 lines, but I mean, 3 of those are just whatchamacallit. Some of them are just put on second lines for no reason. All right. Cool idea would be if they provided you guys like a secondary monitor that reflected this, so you didn't have to like look up and type. It would actually put it beside you.
Or if it casts all of this.
Yeah, or if you could cast it to that, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, if we could cast. directly to all the monitors. That would be neat. You need a massive multiplexer though, because there's so many of them. Like I can use a library like CodePen, for example, and I can type, and you guys can see what I do in CodePen, but it doesn't really work because then most people just copy and paste. And there is like the act of typing it out helps you remember it, because as you're typing it, you will begin to understand it, unless you're one of those like blind typers. You ever seen those guys? The guys that just that's all they do, right? They have no idea what they're typing. They just type it out. All right, let's navigate to the blogging project. Oh, but we're missing things. We're missing so many things. We need to go to routes.js and add our new route. That's the first thing. We'll call it blog blurred destroy. It's like a mixture of geekery for you. Duplicate this guy, but we're going to change this to destroy. We'll call it blog destroy. Go back. Those two. Those two lines. This routes file makes my OCD twitch. I don't like that it's all in one file. It really bothers me.
Separate all different.
I would separate them by their resource, basically, just like I did in the back end, but yeah. I don't like massive route files. Our routes file in GShift is almost 1,000 lines because there's so many routes between our API endpoints and our actual application. But it's like, I think it might even actually be over 1,000 lines, yeah. Which makes it a train wreck to navigate. All right. We have one more thing to do. We need to add a link in edit, or in index, yeah. So we can literally just copy this link, right? And just change this to destroy, and then change the link to, well, we'll call it delete, because people get kind of freaked out when you write destroy. And then I'm going to put a pipe character to separate these two, which it's just going to shove up against the other side. And I think I'll hold off teaching the notifier today just because it's a bit complex and I want to be able to properly explain it. It uses a context object. So what I will do is publish a video for it. So congratulations, you'll be exempted from Lab 4. So you get a free 2.5 points. But yeah, so that's what I'll do. Okay, cool. We ready? Anybody not ready? All right. Open the browser. There you should see delete, delete, delete. Oh, of course. You can see how it's starting to get to the point where we desperately need the notifier. So, delete. Mine worked. Ben, I win. Yes. Did you figure out how to do it?
No, I literally just, I guess I was doing something else and I realized.
I don't actually know. I know what's happening. As I make changes, it's updating it automatically, but the update is happening so fast that I can't beat it. No, we don't want to do that. We need to use the proper thing for it. So why don't we look that up, actually. React, default value for text area. There we go. Forms in React. Let's just find text area. Value supported by text area. Yeah, we know that. Set via the children. We know its value. Name description. Yep, value. This is. Oh, ho, ho! I think I saw it. Aha! No, I know why. Okay, the value doesn't actually go in I did do that. It goes like this. I did do that. Lies. That's all that is. That's lies. How do I fix this, you stupid thing?
Will you try deleting your first entry? All of mine delete except the very top. The very first one. Yeah. That's why it wasn't working. Because I had to add another one with it.
Yep, I can't do it the first one either.
Yet it's telling me that I deleted it successfully. All right, let's clear this. Let's try this. Delete. It is going to destroy and then to blogs. And it's saying it deleted it successfully. Is there a reason why? It has the identifier there.
Is it because you're not the author? Yeah, you can only delete if you are the author.
But I'm also not preank. Oh, yeah, see? I can only delete my own blogs.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was intentional. It was, though. We did that way back. We just totally forgot about it. We're not the logged in author, so we can't delete ones we didn't make yet.
Even when they don't have one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it sucks because we don't know who owns these ones. They're there forever.
we'll have to go, can we go into the database to delete it?
You could go in the database. I bet you also can't edit it. Yep, see?
I think
Didn't
that's
edit.
the reason we
Yeah.
added the
Okay.
those.
You can't edit them and you can't delete them.
Yeah. That's the reason it wasn't working.
Well, mine's still saying 401 even if I read it. Like,
Did you log back in? 401 is unauthenticated. Right. Let me figure out this forms React thing first because we want to make sure we can actually do the text area. Okay, so these are your control components. Only updated using set state. Did that. Well, show me the stupid. Okay, text area defines this. Yeah. This state. Oh, yeah, we did that. This dot state dot value. I did all that. Initialized in the controller. We're doing all this. Something tells me this is something stupid. Like super, super stupid. I mean, I'm literally doing the onChange event of handle input change. Inputs.content is the state piece. I mean, UseEffect will change it if we update the props, but we're not updating the props. I have no reason. I don't know why it's not doing it. Maybe it was because I didn't add my own. Oh, this isn't. Go, edit. Nope, can't edit it. I'll have to figure that out later. All right, any questions about today's class at all? Any questions about the upcoming project part 2? No. Okay, cool. Let's stop.